Hello, spooky crew. Our tote bag drawing is officially closed, and we just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who entered. We are so grateful for the love and the support, and we have loved reading your reviews. Missed the tote? No worries. We're still sending out high-quality vinyl stickers while supplies last. Just email us proof of your rating and review along with your mailing address to thespookydarlings@gmail.com, and we'll get one headed your way. Quick promise, your address is only for mailing the sticker. No emails, no selling info, no funny business, just spooky gratitude. Thanks again for supporting the show. You are the reason we do this.
Hi, and welcome to the Spooky Darlings, where three sisters share stories of the paranormal, true crime, and all things mysterious. I'm Emily.
I'm Nettie.
I'm Haley.
Today, Nettie will take the lead while, in honor of spooky season, we talk about one of the most terrifying paranormal subjects, black-eyed children or black-eyed kids, or BEKs. So many names, so many different ways to be scared. So, lock your house up, check your windows. If you hear a knock, knock, knock on your door, best to ignore it. Take it away, Nettie.
Thank you, Em. I'm equally terrified and excited about this episode. I have to say that of all the paranormal entities that come up in my mind, black-eyed children is probably the one that's given me the most anxiety. Like where if I go down a Reddit thread and read a bunch of cases, I feel like I can't leave my own kids home alone without being like, hey, if you hear a knock at the door and there's weird children outside, just don't answer it. And without over-explaining, because I don't want to scare them, but I also want to be like to me, it seems like a very real possibility that they could show up. So my sources today are The Black-Eyed Children, Revised Second Edition by David Weatherly. That's a book. Another book called The Chilling True Terror of the Black-Eyed Children by G. Michael Vassey. Reddit, Wikipedia, and a few other sources that I will put in the show notes. Okay, so I want to paint a picture for you. And so what I want you to imagine is that you are hanging out at home. It's the evening, right? You're relaxing. It's late. It's kind of past the hour where you would expect visitors, where you would even expect phone calls. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, you hear a knocking. It's very rhythmic and slow. It's so rhythmic and slow that you're not even quite sure if someone's knocking at your door. So you kind of ignore it, but then it gets a little bit louder and insistent. You're like, what? Who is at my door at this hour? So you go, you peek out your peephole or your window, and you see a kid. Or, no, wait, you see two kids? This is weird. They look to be like teenage. You're a little bit surprised and worried, like what's going on? Do they need help? So you open the door just a crack, but as soon as you open that door, you are overwhelmed with a feeling of dread.
Oh boy.
A feeling that things aren't quite right, and you just really cannot put your finger on it. You look at how they're dressed. They might be in hoodies and jeans, have their hoods up, or like some people, they might be dressed in clothes that don't quite fit right, that appear either to be hand-me-downs or clothes that seem to be like from a different decade. So in a voice that's very strange.
And it's not Halloween.
It's not Halloween.
Okay.
Although even if this happens on Halloween, and I think that there were some stories that I found that did happen on Halloween,
Oh, gosh.
I would say, still don't answer the door. If you have your light off, trick-or-treaters shouldn't be coming.
Also, you should never invite a trick-or-treater in. So, I mean, I think you're pretty much...
Yes, don't invite a trick-or-treater in, even if they're very curious. I remember really wanting to look at people's houses, trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treat? What's in here?
They're like, dude, the child, get out of here.
So, okay, in a voice that's very strange, maybe a little bit robotic, monotone, you hear, "It's cold outside. Can we come in?" You say, no. What do you need? Do you need something? Are you hurt? Do you need help? "It won't take long. Can we come in?"
Oh, weird.
"Let us in. We need to use your phone." You might say, here, you can borrow my cell phone, and try to hand it to them. But they will say, "No, we need to use your bathroom." Anything they can to try to get into your house.
Okay.
At some point, they will look up, and you will notice that their eyes are completely black, devoid of any color. The pupils are black, the iris is black, and the sclera is black. The sclera is the whites of the eyes.
There's no whites of their
Yes.
eyes. Okay.
The sclera is the whites of the eyes. Everything is black. So you are locked in fight or flight. You know something's wrong. You don't want to let them in, but you feel compelled to let them in.
Ugh.
You may even unwittingly see your hand reaching for the doorknob to open it further, or let's say the screen's between you, going to open that up, and you're saying, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And until like terror completely takes over, you almost let them in.
Oh my gosh.
So then you close the door and you say, no, I can't help you. You shut the door. And then you go, what did I just do? 2 kids are needing help on my doorway. Like, I feel kind of bad, but let me tell you, you made the right choice, because those were not just kids on your doorway. Those were black-eyed kids.
Oof.
And what are black-eyed kids? Well, I'm going to tell you. And we're going to go over some stories today that are going to sort of solidify. Actually, I don't think they will solidify the definition. I think they're going to confuse us all a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But generally, the definition of a black-eyed kid or black-eyed children or BEKs are that they are creepy, ultra-pale skin. They're paranormal entities that appear as children or young teens, usually under the age of 18. They appear human-like until you get up close. There's something very uncanny about their appearance. Their clothes are wrong. Their skin color and texture doesn't seem right. They're either very pale or they look almost like they've had like a spray tan put on, but in a color that's not quite right for them. Almost like a costume, almost like makeup.
Nothing's not, like things are just, nothing is quite fully natural about them, right?
It's very uncanny. Nothing feels right. You're like, what is wrong? The way they speak isn't quite right. They don't talk like children talk. They'll use old-timey language. One person said it was like they were 2 old men talking out of children's mouths. Their skin is really...
Like the opposite of Ronald Adultman, or...
What, I don't know what that is.
Do you remember that, Haley, from BoJack Horseman?
Oh, 2 kids in a trench coat.
Oh, and they don't...
I'll have 2 alcohols, please.
Like 2 alcohols. Yes, just like that. Just like Ronald Adultman.
But opposite.
Yes. But instead it's like, imagine old men in a words coming out of a child's mouth. Yeah. And so many people have said their skin is
An
really...
old man in a child's skin suit.
Yes. I love that descriptor.
Now,
it's really
we are
beautiful.
clearing up this definition. So their skin is really smooth, no pores, almost doll-like.
Like waxy, right?
They either are super... Oh, I already said that part. They're either super pale or poorly applied self-tanner. It looks wrong. Okay, so they appear to people often hitchhiking, trying to get a ride, begging, or on your doorstep, knocking and asking to be let inside. Now, there was kind of like a start of the Black-Eyed Kids story. And while events happened before this, and many events have happened after, it really started getting widely reported around the time that a man named Brian Bethel wrote in. It was actually kind of on a private forum with friends where he wrote about his creepy story. Someone said, like, what's the creepiest thing that's ever happened? And so this was in 98, and he wrote about something that happened in 1996. So he wrote about it 2 years later. One of his friends that was in this forum, this really like small forum, leaked it out. And then it kind of like snowballed from there, where it became this huge thing where suddenly many people had stories of encounters with black-eyed kids. Other people were writing in saying, no way, this happened to me, and I have never been able to explain it. Or I saw something like that too, and now I realize that what I saw was black-eyed kids or black-eyed children. And Brian Bethel has willingly talked about it. His story has never changed, ever. Like, the details have always remained the same. Mm-hmm. And I find him pretty credible. But let me tell you the story for those of you that don't know it. Emily, do you know Brian Bethel's story? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Okay. So, and Haley, I know you know the Brian Bethel story, so if I miss a part...
It's been a long time, though, so...
If I miss a part, let me know, because I'm trying to do it from memory. Okay, so Brian Bethel, 1996... he decides to drive downtown to pay his internet bill. That's how long ago this was. So he goes, and he's in the shopping center where there's kind of one of those theaters that shows movies that are not brand new releases. And he decides to park under the marquee of the theater because he's using the light from the marquee to write his check. Mm-hmm. And as he's sitting there writing his check, suddenly he hears a knock on his window. And he looks over, and there are what appear to be 2 teenage kids, preteen and teenage. I want to say he thought they were around the ages of like 10 and 14. Mm-hmm. I might be a couple years off on either end there, but around the ages of 10 and 14. 2 boys wearing hoodies. They're looking down. he feels immediately a little bit uneasy and he's like, what do they want? Do they must be asking for money or something? So he kind of cracks his window. He's not like, he feels scared, but he understands reasonably. He's a large man. He rolls down his window and they go, excuse me, sir, we need to get into your car and you need to drive us to our mom's house to get some money so we can watch the Mortal Kombat movie. And Brian was like, well, you want me to just drive you to your house? Yes, we need to get in your car. We need to get in your truck. He was driving a truck. And you can drive us to our mother's house so we can get money. So Brian looks up at the marquee and he notices that the last showing of Mortal Kombat had already started an hour ago. So he says to the kids, I think you've missed it. It started an hour ago. And the kids look at each other and then they look at him and he notices that their eyes are completely black. No whites, just almost like rabbit eyes, completely black. So he immediately is filled with like, he was already feeling really creeped out, but he's immediately filled with dread. And the kids start getting more insistent. Sir, you need to let us in your truck. It will only take a minute. We don't have a gun. We're just children. They were saying things like this. And Brian tried to kind of explain to them. And then finally he got so overwhelmed and creeped out. He rolled up his window and he just put it in drive and floored it and left. And when he kind of like turned the corner to kind of look back for the kids, they were gone. And they really didn't have anywhere they could have gone. It was like in front of an empty theater.
It was kind of like a wide open space where it's like, where would they have disappeared to?
So the story, yeah. And
Okay, let me add something because I didn't know this was the Brian Bethel story, but I had read this
yeah,
one.
tell me.
And the part where he, like, his brain was saying, like, something's off. I'm not letting these kids in my car, but he realized his hand was reaching to open the door for them.
Yes.
Like, almost against his will.
And that happens.
He described, like, feeling almost like being compelled to open
Yeah.
before stopping himself. And that's when he drove off. I just wanted to add that part
And
in.
thank you for adding that. And that is something that happens repeatedly, like kind of in the Black-Eyed Kids lore. In most of the encounters, people say that they don't even realize sometimes that they're actually physically moving to open the door and they kind of have to stop themselves. It's very strange.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like it's kind of when you break eye contact with the Black-Eyed Kids that suddenly you can be like, holy crap, what am I doing? I don't want to open this door. And you can, take off in your car. You can shut the door and lock it.
Yeah. A lot of people think it has to do with eye contact.
Okay.
Oh, so an element of mind control through
Definitely.
their creepy black eyes.
Definitely, that's one of the theories, that there's an element of mind control. So after Brian wrote in that forum, and it wasn't Reddit, it was like some Google forum, or maybe not even Google, like before Reddit, it like just became flooded with stories. And then suddenly all of these stories appeared. And there was a forum called myhauntedlife2.com. And this forum was started by Michael Vassey, who is the author of one of the books that I read, while I was researching this, the book called The Chilling True Terror of the Black-Eyed Kids by G. Michael Vassey. So he started this forum, and he said that it was a forum just for creepy stuff, because he was like, he's someone that experiences like hauntings and paranormal stuff. And so he didn't pay that much attention to the first encounter that he got on the forum about Black-Eyed Kids until he realized that after that episode, visits to his website like avalanched, like just multiplied, and he started to get more and more. So now, Haley, I'm going to have you read the story. It says Haley, number 1. And this is that very first story about Black-Eyed Kids that was submitted to the myhauntedlife2.com forum.
Okay. A few months ago, I visited my mother in Amarillo. She lives in a nice area that has...
I think it's Amarillo.
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 Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know why.
So actually the Spanish pronunciation would be Amarillo, but Texans pronounce it Amarillo.
Sorry. Let me start again.
That's fine.
A few months ago, I visited my mother in Amarillo. She lives in a nice area that has a good reputation. I was expecting to have a nice vacation and spend some quality time with her as she's getting older. We spent the afternoon together, and that evening she went to bed. I wasn't tired, so I decided to watch some TV and catch up with my friends on Facebook. An hour later, there was a knock on the door. I was a little taken aback as this area was normally dead after 10. I went into the kitchen to try and look out to see who was at the door. The knocking was persistent. It wasn't like the average elder visit where a knock would be followed by silence. This was a constant tap, tap, tap. I was starting to get tired of this idiot knocking at the door, so I went to the porch and opened the door. Two teenagers stood there. One looked around 14, the other around 16. I instantly wondered if they were at the wrong house because I was the only person under 30 in my family. There was no possible reason for these kids to be here. They said nothing, so I asked them what they wanted. The older one told me that he was sorry for waking me up, but wanted to come in and use the phone. He explained that they had been left in the area by their parents and they needed to call someone. As he finished speaking, he just stared at me. When I saw his eyes, I couldn't tear myself away. They were completely black, just black. I couldn't break away from his gaze. I had a huge urge to just stand back and let them in. As we stood there staring at each other, they started talking again. This time he wasn't asking, he was demanding I let him in. The facade was gone. Whatever he wanted would only take a few minutes and then they would leave. He wanted me to let him in and help him. I broke my eyes away and I realized that I was actually stepping backwards. I hurriedly told them to get off the porch and to find help elsewhere. I closed the door with them still standing there, and I headed towards the phone. I called the police and told them that there were a couple of kids in the area that seemed to be up to no good. They told me later that they did a thorough check but didn't find anything. No one else in the area had seen them either. My mother hadn't heard them knocking. When I told her about it, she dismissed it as the youth of today with poor manners. She didn't see their eyes. I felt absolutely terrified and felt at odds with their will. I think they meant to do me harm. Does anyone else have experience with black-eyed kids? Submitted by Deanna M.
Nice. Thank you, Haley, for reading that. So that was Deanna's story. And that was the first BEK story submitted to that forum, like I said before. But it kind of opened the floodgates because suddenly on Michael Vassey's website, many, many, many more stories followed. And on his website right now, he's actually kind of made it so I think you have to like join his Substack to access all of them, which I did not do. Although I did think about it because I can imagine it would take me hours to go through. But it seems that encounters with black-eyed kids are really not uncommon at all. And Emily, I'm going to have you now read a story. This is another one that was submitted to myhauntedlife2.com. And it starts with the UFO encounter, which I thought was interesting. And I couldn't find more about that particular UFO encounter, but we'll talk a little bit more about the relationship, like later in the episode, about the relationship between UFOs and black-eyed kids, if there is one. But I wanted Emily to read this one. And this, by the way, is a pretty recent posting.
Yeah. Yes, this is June 2nd, 2025. Black-eyed kids, your stories. I had just been shaken to the core by a UFO encounter. I was left shocked, nervous, a bit afraid, but also in awe by this encounter. I decided to report this to MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. I'm adding this in because I did not know what MUFON is.
No, thank you. I didn't know what it was either. I'm glad you did it.
So it is the largest and oldest citizen UFO investigation research network. So it's kind of like not government related. It's just people reporting and sharing UFO information. So I decided to report this to MUFON. A MUFON investigator came to my home and I told him about my sighting, which he seemed to find very interesting and amazing. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door. There stood a very young man holding some magazines. The magazines looked a little tattered and somewhat used. He was looking down as he talked to me, saying he was a magazine salesman. His tone of voice was drone-like. I was very nervous the minute I opened the door and somewhat afraid. Why, I don't really know. As the young man looked up at me, I noticed he had large square black glasses on and his eyes were large and pitch black. His face was pale and waxy looking, so eerie and not at all human looking. He stared at me with intensity. That scared me even more, not to mention the magazines he was selling were old and torn. The black suit he had on was very much out of style and looked to be from the 1950s. The young man proceeded to say that he needed to come in so he could show me the magazines. I told him he could show me from the front porch. He persisted that he needed to come inside. He repeated that several times and began to become irritated with me. I told him I wasn't interested, but he continued to want to come in. He wouldn't give up. I was scared and wanted him to leave, but he wouldn't. He said I needed to invite him in or else he wasn't allowed to enter, which I thought was a strange thing to say, not allowed. He began to step inside. He said again I needed to invite him in with such urgency in his voice that it frightened me. I had to push him away and slam the door and lock it. The man kept knocking on the door saying he had to come in. I yelled to him to go away or I would call the police. All of a sudden, it was very quiet. The knocking had stopped. I walked to the window and looked out. There was nobody there. It seemed impossible that he could have disappeared that quick. I was left feeling very scared and shocked at what had just happened. It was the strangest thing. The next day, I asked my neighbors if they had a magazine salesman come to their door. The answer I got from all of them was no. They said they hadn't even seen anyone around the neighborhood that fit that description. I don't think it was a real salesman at all.
No.
What gave it away?
He looked, sounded, and acted very, very strange. Those huge black eyes were one of the scariest things I've ever seen. He just seemed so odd and robot-like. I hope I never see anyone like that again. Unreal. As for being paranormal, I couldn't say. Maybe it had something to do with the UFO I had seen 2 days earlier. All I know is it was extremely strange and very scary. Submitted by Paula.
I think that's paranormal.
I don't think she gains credibility by starting with the fact that she saw a UFO the day before. It almost makes me feel like, all right, Paula.
Listen,
crazy.
in some circles, she's gaining credibility.
You're right. I guess you're right.
Reporting it to MUFON is the correct
Best
order
first
of things.
Well, and it makes you wonder if because she's the only one in her neighborhood that had an encounter with a black-eyed kid, maybe that's why she's like, maybe this had something to do with the alien encounter or the UFO I saw, because no one else in my neighborhood saw.
It seems a little more vampire-like to me with the whole, you have to invite me in.
To be invited
It
in.
reminds, did you guys watch that movie, Let Me In, or Let the Right? So first it was the foreign language one was called Let the Right One In. It was such
Yes,
an excellent
yes.
movie. And then they,
I loved that one. That one was the best.
yes, it was so good. And then they did the American remake that was called Let Me In. Both very, very good movies. But like,
I don't actually know if I saw the American remake.
I saw both of them.
Did we see
They
it
were both good.
together?
I think so.
I might have seen it.
The same night we watched Midnight Meat Train.
child vampires are just freaky to think about. And also, I don't think they're real.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. You might not, just like all the non-believers that had experiences with black-eyed kids.
It's so interesting too, though, because if you look up on, you know, like on Snopes, it's like, okay, black-eyed. Oh, no, I guess it was Wikipedia that I looked, but they were like, yep, black-eyed kids are probably just, you know, like a creepypasta type made-up thing. Everybody, you know, started talking about it basically after this 1990s guy that you mentioned. But I do have to say, it's so interesting to trace any origin back to that time when the internet was just becoming so connected.
Yeah.
Like anything that happened before then, you wouldn't be able to connect people in like places from all across the country to talk about these things, whether they happened or not, right? So like you know, I always am very skeptical of these kinds of stories, but it's so interesting to kind of place yourself in that time, which some listeners probably have never lived without the internet, but like getting to that point in time where people were starting to be able to connect in chat rooms and forums and things like that. Of course, there
Before
would.
you could even just
Yeah.
Google something and
Well-
there was no term, there wasn't the term Google.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and so we can just talk about that now. I talk about theories, and you know, one of the theories is a lot of people, like especially skeptics, do say it's urban legends and point exactly as you said to that. A lot of these stories come after, but it was the advent of the internet. It was when we had the ability to start sharing stories. So it's like, it just kind of like the timing, his story comes out. Oh my gosh, my neighbor's dog is going insane. His story comes out and people realize, oh, I had a story like this, like where before all you could do was share stories, like, you know, verbally, like you'd hear, oh, this is where you get like, you know, like, oh no, my cousin's friend also had a Bloody Mary experience. And that was like our childhood in the 80s. And then all of a sudden it's like, you can post something and someone sends it to the right forum and it's accessible to 1 million people. So then instead of just, you know, 20 people and trying to see if within that 20 people, someone else had a similar experience, it's millions of people. Like, I mean, it could be like from a skeptical point of view that a lot more people are just making up stories and want to participate, but it also could be that people are having real encounters.
Yeah, like the connection, the engagement, and, you know, of course, sometimes people want to make sure they're included too, and so they might make up something, but it also feels good probably to just be like, okay, so I'm not the only one. Like, I felt like I was going crazy. So
Well, and sometimes you have an experience and you can't really wrap it, like you can't make sense of it. So it's almost like you put it aside. Then suddenly you hear something where you're like, oh my gosh, I something happened to me and that's reminding me of it. And all of a sudden you're able to piece it together and put a name and put a label on it. Like if you saw a kid with black eyes, you might be like, what the heck did I just see? Was that like a sick child, or was that, you know, someone wearing contacts, which I will say, like a lot of people are like, you know, oh, it's a group of kids just running around pranking people. Colored, black, full colored contacts like that in the late 90s were about $260 a pair. And they were very uncomfortable, and the companies that sold them would not sell to children. So the likelihood of a group of kids that had the money and the means and the what do you call it? Like the stamina or
The commitment.
Or had like a relaxed parent who was like, sure.
The commitment to be able to put those in.
the pain tolerance.
And, I mean, if they had that kind of money to pay for contacts, they would not have had tattered magazines. They would have had new, slick magazines.
Exactly.
And up-to-date clothing.
And a better fitted suit. Yes.
Okay, so now Michael Vassey, the one that hosts this website, he actually had. Oh, I did want to say though about that. It makes me wonder, like the old clothes and the old magazines and kind of the old-timey speech. I wonder if there's a time travel element.
Oh,
I do wonder. And I think I tell a story later that also kind of alludes to that. But Michael Vassey had his own experience where he was out mowing his lawn and he noticed that his rose bushes had been trampled. And he was like, what? Who trampled my rose bushes? You know, kind of feeling a little bit mad about it. So the next day he's outside, like looking at his yard, and he notices some strange kids that he had never seen before, about 14, 15 years old, two of them, walking down the street. And as soon as they get across from his house, they just stop and they stare at him. And his first thought is, are those the kids that trampled my roses? Should I say anything?
Yeah, get off my lawn.
Yeah, very get off my lawn, but he decides not to. And he just goes back inside, glances out his window a few minutes later. The kids are still there, just staring at his house. He's like, weird. Well, you know, who are these kids? I've never seen them before. Does some work, goes and looks again. The kids are gone. Doesn't think about it. 8 p.m. or so that night, starting to get dark, all of a sudden there's some power surges in his house, which he said was very unusual. He never had power issues. And then the power kind of stabilizes, and there is what he referred to as a deep knocking starting at about 8:20 p.m. So he goes.
How lucky for him to never have power issues. Must not be in Texas.
Yeah, which is funny. So many of these accounts are in Texas. I would say like a majority of these accounts are in Texas. There are some in Portland and all over the U.S., but
black-eyed kids prefer warm weather.
They might, although there's a bunch in Portland. Oregon.
And rainy weather.
Yeah, they prefer warm and rainy weather. And there's some snowy ones too. Okay, so what he referred to as deep knocking. And I imagine that is almost just like slow and like methodical and loud is kind of how I pictured it. So his porch light is on, but he goes and he looks through his peephole and it's just blackness. And he's like, that's weird. I should be able to see what's out there, but it's just black.
Was one of the black-eyed kids just had their eye right up to
maybe. That's why it was black, yeah. Okay, so he's filled with terror, but he finds himself opening the door, which is weird because he doesn't even know what's out there. But he finds himself opening the door, like that, being compelled to do something, like you had said earlier with Brian Bethel's story, Emily. So he says, who's there? And when he opens the door, the light is on these two kids. They're looking down. And he says, it's the same kids that were standing across the street from his house earlier. And they say, sorry to bother you, but we are lost and need to use your phone. Michael offers them a spare phone he has and tells the kids that they can use it outside. But the kids say, no, you let me in right now. And then Michael started to shut the door and the kid banged on the door. And Michael said it sounded like they were hitting the door with something large and wide, not just like knocking with a fist.
Oh my gosh.
No, you let me in right now. And so Michael shouts out, you quit that right now. I've got a gun. And he did. He went and grabbed a gun. And if you try anything, I will shoot you. So, kids, you pull out a gun. So
exactly. That's the correct response to teenagers.
He holds the gun in one hand.
Sounds like Texas.
And he opens the door. And he sees that the two teens are now looking up. And they have pitch black eyes, no whites. He is at the same time completely filled with terror, but is feeling compelled to put the gun down. It's a rifle. This is not a video, but I'm holding my finger like it's a pistol. It's like basically a rifle he's holding. So he lowers his rifle and he feels compelled to let them in, even though it feels wrong. So the kids start to walk forward and he kind of feels himself sort of stepping back as though to let him in. But then his instincts take over and he pushes the door shut and slams the door. The kids start crying, screaming, and wailing, but in a very distorted sound, like almost like it was coming through a recording or something.
Weird.
And
I hate
banging
that.
on the door. They were banging on the door kind of violently, which isn't always the case. Like many cases of encounters with the black-eyed kids, they just stay calm and are like persistent in trying to get in, but they don't actually get angry. He goes to his back door and checks to make sure it's locked. And then when he goes back to the front door, the kids are gone. So a neighbor stops by, and a neighbor was like, I heard crying and screaming, like, what's going on? And Michael kind of told him what happened. And the neighbor was like, you need to call the police. And Michael said, no, I'm not going to call the police. And he doesn't. But I thought it was interesting because often in these cases, when neighbors or other people in the house are asked if they heard or saw anything, the answer is no. Often it seems like the black-eyed kids isolate the experience to the person that they're interacting with. And there's even like video surveillance, like where people will say, I was having a conversation with this kid and it had black eyes, and there'll be video surveillance and it will be the person talking to nothing.
Whoa.
So I don't know. And it's interesting that he looked through the peephole, couldn't see them.
My theory is one of the kids was holding their eye up to the people.
Or putting my kids at the hotels, they like to put their finger over the peephole when they knock, just to see if they can get me to open the door anyway. And I'm like, I know it's you guys.
Mom.
I don't know if their slick looking skin could black it out though.
Don't know.
Their pale, slick skin.
Pale, waxy skin, smooth. Okay, so there was a lady in Odessa. I think Odessa is in Texas.
It is.
This is another Texas story. So she was reading at night. Her husband was at work, and she hears a knock, and it's really late. So she thought that was weird. So she goes and she looks through the window and she sees two kids. She doesn't open the door. They say, let us in. And they had on black clothes. They looked really dirty. She says, no, I'm not going to let you in. And then they say, we want to use your bathroom. So she closes the window and then like kind of opens it and peeks out, like closes her blinds and kind of peeks out of the blinds. And she sees that the kids are looking up now, looking right where she was, and that they have black eyes. She was filled with an absolute horrible feeling. And she just went and she was like, I've got to get away from the door. She didn't open the door, but she went in and sat in her living room, and they knocked for 2 hours. And she tried to call the cops. She was going to like call the cops or call her husband, but her phone was dead. So for 2 hours, she just sat there huddled in complete terror while they knocked. And the knocking kept going until she heard her husband's car come up into the driveway.
Oh my
And then it
gosh.
just stopped suddenly. He came in, checks the phone line. Phone line's totally working and fine. And then
So-
he did not see anything. He didn't see kids at the door, nothing.
Oh my gosh. So our electric disturbances, if I remember correctly, they're associated with black-eyed kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the power surge that Michael Vassey had right before they knocked. There's like lots of cases where people's power goes out. I mean, and that's also just associated with like hauntings in
Yeah.
general and like electromagnetic
The
frequencies.
ghosty demon theory or something.
Yeah. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories. So this one was also, actually, I found this one in a couple places. I found it in both books I read, and I found like some videos that talked about it. But so there's a couple, married couple, no kids. They both work very early in the morning. So it's about 4:30 a.m. and they're up getting ready for work. And suddenly there's a knock at the door. And the man went and answered the door. And he said later he didn't realize, like he should have thought it was stranger than he did at the time that there was a knock at 4:30 in the morning. But he goes and he just kind of opens the door without thinking. And there is a teenager about 5 feet tall with black hair and sunglasses eating an apple. And he said that as soon as he opens the door and lays eyes on this teenager, and mind you, the teenager has sunglasses on, so he can't actually see the eyes. He is absolutely overcome with fear. And
I get it. Teenagers wearing sunglasses is so scary.
especially at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
If he's eating an apple, we know it's not a vampire,
Well,
right?
I mean, who
That
knows?
sounds like a rumor spread by vampires.
Yeah, that sounds like a rumor spread by Stephanie Meyer.
Oh, you're probably right. I thought human food made them throw up.
They might take a few bites and spit it out. So, but I love this story though. So, eating an apple, and he says, "Can I come in and warm up?" So, the man says no, and he closes the door and puts in the chain. And then the kid says again, "Can I come in and warm up?" So this time he opens the door, but the chain is locked. And he says, no, you can't come in. And he starts to close the door, and the kid catches it with his hand and then
Scary.
says, can I at least get some ketchup for my apple?
Gross.
Ah,
And the guy says, not a chance. My wife is currently calling the police because remember, his wife is in the back room. And the kid smiles at him, lets go of the door, and says, no, you won't be calling anybody. So the man pushes the door shut, locks it, calls to his wife, and he's like, did you just hear that? And she's like, no, I didn't hear anything. I didn't even hear the door knock. I just thought you were out here talking to yourself.
oh
And
my
so
gosh.
he looks outside. He's like, no, no, I swear there was like a kid at our door and, tells her the weird story. And she's like, whatever, you are making this up. So he looks outside. The kid is gone. He goes outside. He checks his yard. His yard is very open and empty. There's no place to hide. The kid's not in the yard. Also, his gate is really high. This kid was only about 5 feet tall. He said even kind of small for a teenager. And the kid to get into the yard would have had to reach over a very tall fence. And the man said it would have really been difficult. Like he would have needed help. The kid's not there. The gate's closed. His wife doesn't believe him. She doesn't believe him until she comes back from work later that afternoon and finds an apple core sitting on the steps. And when he had gone outside to check, the apple core was not there. He said he scanned the yard so carefully and the apple core was not there.
Weird.
So somehow that apple core was placed there after he went out and checked and did not see anybody and between when his wife got home.
Oh, freaky. Yeah.
Huh.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so weird.
And well, and just the saying can I at least get some ketchup for my apple? It's almost like I know humans like ketchup on their food and humans like
Like
apples.
that,
This is something I can
that
say.
Haruki Murakami author, you know that guy, the guy that wrote
Uh-huh.
Norwegian Wood
Never
and
let me.
no, you're thinking of a different guy. You're thinking of Ishiguro. Anyway, Murakami had a t-shirt that said, I like ketchup on my ketchup or something like that.
I like
And then he just like he wrote this essay about like how Americans just like love their ketchup and so enthusiastically love their weird Americanisms, and he always gets like shouts and cheers about that t-shirt when he wears it.
I like ketchup on my ketchup. That is funny. I did read something where Americans will tolerate alterations to almost any sauce, like, flavored mustards and things like that, that they really want their ketchup to just taste like ketchup. And anytime a company tries to like play with ketchup, like making it, I don't know, like barbecue ketchup or ketchup with zing, it doesn't sell.
Oh yeah.
Americans don't like it.
Oh.
The ketchup in Asia tasted very different from ketchup here, but it turns out ketchup originated there, so we're the ones that changed it.
Is it sweeter?
It has like more of a spice presence, like not as in spicy hot, but like almost like a Chinese five spice flavor. Like interesting stuff.
Tune into our episode on spices
Tune into our ketchup
later.
podcast.
Okay. So, as like black-eyed kids started to be talked about more, people started doing research and going and finding stories that had happened before Brian Bethel's story. So they ended up finding encounters, sometimes written down, sometimes just passed down in family lore about people who had encountered black-eyed kids before 1996 when Brian Bethel's infamous encounter happened in Abilene, Texas. So Emily is going to read us a story about an encounter in 1950s Virginia. And this happened in a small farm town. And this was told to David Weatherly, the author of Black-Eyed Children. And he's also a regularly featured guest on Coast to Coast AM. He's kind of well known in the paranormal world. And several family members told the story, all very similarly, about this man named Harold. So go ahead, Emily. And what I was going to say is several family members told it, and the details were the same.
Okay, so 1950s Merrill, Virginia farm, Harold's story. 16-year-old Harold was walking home just before sundown. He was taking his time strolling along the dirt road when he reached the fence line that led to his family home there. Leaning against the corner fence post was a young boy of about 10 to 12 years of age. Harold slowed down, puzzled since he knew everyone in the small community, yet he had never seen this boy before. When he reached the boy, he simply started talking to him. The boy didn't respond, but just stood there leaning against the post, looking slightly down toward the ground. Receiving no response, Harold wondered if something was wrong with the boy. He stopped talking for a moment before leaning closer. "Hey, are you all right?" Harold asked. With this, the boy finally spoke. His reply was rather blunt. I want to go to your house. Take me to your house. Harold felt a strange chill come over him at the boy's response. He couldn't understand why a boy he didn't know was asking to go to his house. At that moment, the young boy looked up directly at Harold. It was then that he realized the young boy's eyes were solid black. There was not a speck of white showing in the eyes. Harold began to feel very afraid. He looked up the drive to his house. He felt rooted to the spot for some reason, but his thoughts were focused on how fast he could run to his home. Harold's thoughts seemingly produced a further comment from the strange black-eyed boy. The child scowled at him and said coldly, Now, don't you run away from me. You're going to walk me to your house.
Now don't you run away from me.
The comment seemed like a threat, and it was the final straw for Harold. He launched into a mad dash of the drive toward his house. He was running as hard as he could and didn't look back for fear the weird child was following him. Partway up the drive, Harold heard a strange call behind him. It sounded like the scream of a bobcat.
Oh my
Of
God.
course, the screeching sound only served to help Harold's legs move faster in the rush to reach his home. I think I must have really angered that boy, Harold later commented. He screamed out, and I thought for sure he was coming at me. Once safely in the house, Harold slammed the door behind him. His parents, seeing him so out of breath, asked what was wrong. He told them about his encounter with the creepy boy. Thinking he would get to the bottom of things, Harold's father promptly walked down the driveway with a shotgun in hand,
So
but
many
found no
people
sign of the boy.
taking guns to, to threaten these black-eyed kids. I don't think they work.
He found no sign of the boy his son had described. Harold's parents listened to their son recount the story a second time, asking a few questions along the way. Since their son was never going to make up stories, his parents believed the tale. Harold insisted the child he encountered was solid and could not have been a ghost. His father simply wasn't sure what to make of the encounter. While he had heard of strange tales in the country, he'd never heard of anything like the black-eyed kids his son described. Harold's mother firmly believed that her son had met the devil himself. To that end, she promptly had him dress in good clothes and took him to the local clergy for a blessing.
You are changing out of your farm wear right now, Harold. I am not taking you to the priest dressed like that. Clean up.
Exorcism immediately.
Harold's father later spoke to my neighbors to see if they encountered anything strange. A couple of residents reported they had recently heard of a bobcat. None of them had seen any out-of-place children. The family decided to keep the story quiet. If by chance their son had encountered the devil, they didn't want any talk about it getting around, or, for that matter, anything that might cause the black-eyed boy to return.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, that was a typo on my part. That was just supposed to say heard a bobcat, not heard of a bobcat. That they had heard a bobcat, but had not seen any out-of-place children. Yeah.
They recently learned of bobcats.
Well, and this is the only one where I could find where the child, I mean, there are ones where the child screams and wails and it sounds distorted, but the idea that it was like a bobcat is the only one I could find that it was almost like had that, I don't know, it made me think of like shape-shifting a little bit. I mean, it didn't say he turned into a bobcat, but that's kind of like what I thought. But the mind reading thing, like where Harold says he feels like running away, and right when he's about to, the kid's like, "You're not going to run away on me. Now, don't you run away on me. Or don't you run away from me.
I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, but if Harold was that age, do you remember your kids ever doing that thing where they like get their run pose ready before they take off?
I'm listening." Yes, I do. That's
Maybe
true.
he was doing that.
But there are a few other stories where it seems like the BEKs do telepathically communicate with the people that they're encountering or with each other. Like there was a story where a man and his wife answered the door. And I don't think I tell this one, but I'll just tell this part of it. They open the door and there's two black-eyed kids on the porch. And the husband thinks to himself, like, what the hell am I looking at? And he said one of the kids turned, looked him in the eye, and telepathically in his head, the kid said, "You know we're not real, don't you?"
What?
Weird.
Yeah. So that telepathic communication. And then there was another story where a woman said that these kids were trying to get into her house. And that first they said, "We need to come in and use your phone." And then she said, like, you can't come in, but I could hand you my cell phone. And she said that they would turn and look at each other and almost like wait a beat. And then they would try a new tactic. "My brother needs to use your bathroom." No, I don't feel comfortable letting kids I don't know come in to use my bathroom. Turn and look at each other. "We're not feeling well and we need to come in." It's like just trying new things, almost like they looked at each other and were like, "Okay, what's the next thing we need to say? What's the next thing we need to
We
say?"
need ketchup for our apple.
We need apple for our
We
ketchup.
need ketchup. And on that vein of like telepathic communication, there's a little bit of that in the story that Haley is going to read, which also takes place before Brian Bethel's account. Go ahead, Haley.
Okay. Note, this story took place in the 1970s, long before the current wave of stories got going. I was around 12 when this incident took place. I didn't know anything about the black-eyed kids until a few years ago when I started reading reports on the internet about these strange incidents. My story is a little different to those other accounts. I was sitting in my mom's car waiting for my mom to return. She was inside Walmart and I had elected to wait in the car with my book. A young boy had walked past the car a few times and I hadn't really taken that much notice of him. The fourth or fifth time the boy went past, I think he noticed me as he came over to the car and stared in at me. I tried to ignore him and read my book, but he started whispering, "Let me in." I knew the front doors were locked and checked the doors at the back. My side was unlocked, but the side the boy was on was locked. I locked my side. The boy kept pleading to be let in. Then the boy went quiet and stared at me for a few minutes before walking away. I want to talk about the eyes. This boy had completely black eyes. There was no other color to be seen, just pure blackness. He didn't blink. He didn't wince or show emotion. His face was stony white. When he spoke, I seemed to hear the words in my head more than through my ears. Then he tapped on the window. It was slow and methodical. He did not seem to be in any danger or need my help. He was not panicking. It was almost like he was a robot under the control of someone or something else. The weirdest thing about this encounter was that my mother returned to the car a few minutes later and complained that some woman had approached her and had asked for the keys to her car. She said my mother had blocked her in and this woman wanted to move her car. My mom knew she hadn't. This strange woman became quite insistent and my mother had been forced to ask a security guard to help her. To my knowledge, our incidents had taken place at exactly the same time. She told me that the woman's eyes were strange, not completely black, but almost. So were these incidents related? I think so. But how did two seemingly unconnected people manage to communicate so effectively over such a distance? Keep in mind, this happened in the 1970s, before the microtechnology of today. Were they under the control of another person, or were they able to communicate telepathically? What is going on? Submitted by Yanni Imbrugen, originally 12/08/2016.
That is just the craziest story. It almost sounds like a kidnapping plan, a kidnapping plot. If they were just like a kid, but he didn't have black eyes, I would probably just think that woman probably scouted out, saw the kid alone in the car, maybe watched the mother go in, and they were like, okay, you stand by the car, you try to get in, and then I'll get the keys, you know, that kind of thing. But because the kid had black eyes.
Yeah, and like
Yeah, it was totally normal to leave kids alone in the car in the 70s and 80s. We were left in the car
All
alone
the time.
all the time. Do you remember the time? Do you remember the time that Mom went to the grocery store with me and James, and we must have been literally like 2 and 4. Like we were little. She left us in the little old diesel Mercedes. James climbed in the front and pulled the emergency brake release, and the car rolled backwards and hit Safeway, like hit the grocery store and bounced a few times because it was one of those old Mercedes that had a rubber bumper all the way around. So it literally like did no damage to anything and just like hit, bounce, 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 and then stopped. Do you remember this?
I wasn't there, but I remember hearing about it.
You guys weren't there. Yeah, I mean, that was, and it was just like, Mom laughed so hard. Nobody was in trouble. Nobody was calling the police. People were like, are you guys okay? You know, but it was like,
Yes.
such a different time, you know, like now you would have charges pressed against you, I'm certain. CPS would be all up in your business.
Remember when it was like fun to go to the store with Mom because we could play on the snow pile? Because they would plow all of the snow into a corner, and it was just almost like, here, the kids will play on this while their moms shop. It was like free daycare. I mean, and literally like young kids, snowsuits on, their mom would unload them from the car, go over and play on the snow pile. And we would just be like sliding down.
Which was like where, just the grocery store would use snowplows to shove shove the snow into one giant tall corner of the parking lot that you could climb up and slide back down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So dangerous, though.
It would just be a mob of
So
kids.
It's yeah, you're right. It is totally normal.
Was.
And this actually goes into our next story where what happens if you let the black-eyed kids in. And this is the perfect segue. You may have, if you've done a lot of research on black-eyed kids or read stuff, you may have heard this one. But in David Weatherly's book, he reports that he has come across the story of many people who have made the mistake of letting black-eyed kids into their home or car. And so this is a story of a family, and they want to remain anonymous, so we don't have their names, but it was a married couple, and they had a 10-year-old son, and they lived in a very rural area, very, very small. I almost think of it like halfway Oregon, where it's like off the beaten path. You know, it's not even like a freeway doesn't even go by. So everyone feels safe. Everyone knows each other. And it was not uncommon, and even though this was more recent, it was not uncommon to leave your kids in the car while you ran errands because everybody knew each other. So the mom was driving home, stopped by and picked up her son from school or from like, sports or whatever. And she stops by the supermarket and left him in the car for like 5 to 10 minutes, no more. She comes out, and as she's walking out of the store, she sees through the window that someone else is sitting in the car next to her son. She saw that it was a kid that was slightly older than her son. Her son was calm and quiet, but she was like, this is not a kid I know. Something is wrong here. She's filled with alarm. So she goes over and she opens the door, and the boy was looking down, and she asked him if he needed something. And he said, your son invited me into the car. And then he looks up at her, and his eyes, you guessed it, were completely black. She's immediately filled with terror and alarm. She opens the door to her son's side of the car, gets him out. She doesn't even say anything to the kid. She goes back in, she goes into the store, and she like tells the manager what happens. And so security for the store escorts her out. The car was empty. So she calls her husband, and she's crying. She's scared. She asked him to come to the store. And, you like, think about it. She's telling him on the phone, there was a kid in our car. He'd be like, okay, what is wrong? There's like a kid in the car. And her, but she knew something was wrong. And while she was waiting for her husband to come, she asks the son, like, who was that? What happened? And he said, I don't know. But he knocked on the window and he asked to come in. And I thought that we could play together. So I said yes. And so think about like if adults are compelled by black-eyed kids, imagine a child who doesn't understand how to like listen to that inner system. They maybe don't have it as fine-tuned, or maybe it's more tuned. I don't know.
I guess I feel like you would think if they had these rules, like, okay, somebody has to invite me in, it would have to be at least a consenting adult, right? Like,
I've thought about that.
it shouldn't be a 10-year-old like, oh yeah, come on in. Like, I mean, they could literally be like, that infant smiled in a certain way. It probably means I can't go in.
Well,
I just made that song up. I don't know
It was
why.
beautiful. And I actually, that's funny that you said that, because I thought about that. Because like, what happens to people that let black-eyed kids in is a bunch of bad stuff. And I almost wonder if she could have been like, no, you reversed the curse because this is my car and I did not let you in. Him inviting you in doesn't count. So curse reversed.
I'm going to take you to Black-Eyed Kids Court.
Black-eyed kid court. Yeah, where there will be a jury of peers. Will be half black-eyed kids, half, just like normal-eyed kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all kids, though. It's a jury of kids.
A jury of children, a jury of peers.
A jury of the black-eyed kids' peers.
So this is what happened next. Her husband came and she was like, I don't want to drive the car home. She was so terrified by that being. She knew it was like not human being in her car that she was like, I can't drive the car home. So they swapped cars. The husband is like, I don't know what the big deal is. And the husband got into a car wreck on the way home. Car was totally totaled. Car was totaled. The man was fine. He ended up with some minor injuries, but the last thing he remembers right before the crash was a foul odor, like the smell of rotting eggs.
Oh my gosh.
After that, the son became very ill, but they could not diagnose him because every time they figured out what was wrong with him, the symptoms changed. So it started out with red bumps all over his body, and they were like, it's the measles. And as soon as they diagnosed and started treating measles, it changed and he had appendicitis. And as soon as they were ready to do surgery on his appendix, it wasn't the appendix, it was just the flu. There was no treatment. Like no matter what they did, his symptoms just changed and he was just sick, one illness after another after another. And it wasn't until the family like told family and friends and they did a prayer circle that the boy actually got better. But it was like every time the doctors went to treat it, the symptoms would stop and he developed new symptoms for like a completely new sickness.
Weird.
So
my
I don't know. What do you think?
That's super weird.
I mean, the
Yeah.
rotting egg smell.
Yeah, did he have eggs in his
Kind of.
pocket? Did he leave them? Was he asking for ketchup for his
Well,
eggs?
it also reminds me of like demonic
Yes.
things
Demons.
because that sulfur smell goes along with
Oh,
demons.
you guys teach me everything. I didn't know demons had a sulfur smell.
Yes. Demons have a
Yeah.
sulfur smell or sometimes a rotting meat smell, which is another smell that's also reported to be to accompany black-eyed kids. It's not like they smell like it. It's more like they leave the smell. Like it was smelt in the car or something bad happens and they'll smell. It's always after an encounter with black-eyed kids. And guess what else has been reported to have that smell? Rotten eggs or rotting meat. Gray aliens.
I did not know this.
I did not know that either until I started researching this.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
Okay, I don't know about gray aliens, but do we think okay, well, we can save theories for later. I mean, but you're going to wrap up with a bunch of theories.
we're going to talk about theories actually right now.
Oh, we are. Okay, so
if you
do we
want
think-
time.
to propose a theory,
well,
now is the time. And I may say, and I'll just like talk whatever you're talking about if it's in my theories, and it might not be. I
wait,
don't
did
know.
you need me to read Anne's story first?
I skipped. No, that's part of the theories.
Oh, it is part of the theories. Okay, so I mean,
So to talk about what you were just about to bring up.
okay, so things that come to mind. The whole idea of the clothing being weird, like aliens are often depicted as like non-clothing beings. So like the idea of fashion and things being in or out of fashion, like like the clothing being a little bit off all the time lines up with maybe an alien theory. If aliens are like not,
Yeah.
if they're nudists, if aliens are nudists and don't understand fashion and trends.
It does line up.
The other thing I was going to say
I
is,
love that. Aliens are nudists.
could it be shark children, shark tweens,
Oh.
like a wolf man, like Teen Wolf Man, but shark not wolf.
Oh, because sharks do have black eyes.
Eyes and their skin.
Sharks have black eyes and their skin is sharky, waxy, smooth. I don't know if their teeth are pointy or not.
Yeah.
Those were just two little things that popped in my mind. Also, like, not totally serious, kind of half serious, but just like,
Yeah.
as we've described these things, I'm like, what is it?
Ooh, because the skin and because of
The skin,
And the
skin,
eyes.
the
the black
eyes.
eyes.
And just not knowing fashion. Like sharks don't really understand
Sharks have never been
fashion.
very good at fashion.
Actually, before we move on to theories, I did have a few other stories of people letting kids in. I sort of skipped to my third story because it was the woman in the car.
Oh, cool.
But I actually forgot that I have a few more stories of people letting black-eyed kids in that I'm going to just tell really briefly.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a married couple, and they lived in a rural area. I want to say this was Vermont, rural Vermont, and it's wintertime. It's snowy, it's cold, and they're woken up, and I think they're older, like, grandparent age. They're woken up around 2 a.m. by knocking on their door, and they're, just like coming out of sleep, and the husband goes and lets the kids in, and the wife starts making cocoa, and they were kind of like, what's happening? Like, I've got to let these children in. So the husband sits in the living room to ask the kids what's going on. There were two children, a boy and a girl, and the wife goes into the kitchen to make hot cocoa. And so he's saying, like, what's happened? Why are you out alone in this rural area? And they just kept saying, don't worry, our parents will be here soon. And just sat there, and he's trying to get information out of him. And the wife walks in to the living room with a hot cocoa, and she notices that the kids' eyes are solid black. She hadn't noticed that until she goes into the living room. Solid black eyes. So she's very startled, and she's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And then she also noticed that her cats, they had a couple cats and a bird. The bird was squawking, kind of like
Freaked out.
totally uncontrollably. That bird was not a noisy bird, never reacted that way. And the cats were hissing and staying away from the kids. And the cats were friendly, like had never reacted that way. The little boy asks if he can use the bathroom. And so the woman shows the kids where the bathrooms are. Both kids go down to the bathroom. And she turns to her husband to be like, oh my gosh, did you see their eyes? Like something's wrong. And her husband is holding his face. I just realized I covered my mouth when I said that because I was acting it out. And the husband is holding his face and he pulls his hands away and his hands are like bleed. His hands are covered in blood and he's got this huge nosebleed. And so he's looking super alarmed. And the woman's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And the kids come down the hallway right then. And I think there was a power surge at this point. And they go, our parents have arrived. And they go, the kids open the door and walk outside. The kids don't even close the door behind them. They just walk out. And the couple looks out in the chaos, of this woman trying to deal with her husband's bloody nose. They see it's a car with two dark suited adults inside. And in one story I heard they were outside of the car, like standing and waiting for the kids, and then opened the door for the kids, and the kids got in. Which a lot of people said were those men in black.
That is actually my favorite theory.
The Men in Black theory. And I didn't want to delve too much into Men in Black because I felt like this could be this whole episode and I don't want to talk too much about it. But people who have encountered or visited Men in Black, it is not like the movies with Will Smith.
Or Men in Black have visited them.
Did I say visit? Yes, men who have been visited by Men in Black think that they are aliens. They do not think that they are humans that are dealing with aliens. They actually think that the Men in Black are like wearing human suits, kind of like in the movie where she's like, it was like Edgar, or it was like someone wearing an Edgar suit. Her. That is actually the story of Men in Black. So anyway, then shortly after that, their bird just dies, basically hemorrhages in its cage. Their cats, I think one of their cats died and the other cats ran away, like never found again. And the husband was diagnosed like within a week with a very aggressive form of skin cancer. She also started experiencing nosebleeds, the wife, and dizziness. And all of it happened like right after the black-eyed kids left their home. Also, their power went out. As soon as the kids left the house, the power went out and it didn't come back on for like a couple hours.
Wow.
So pretty crazy.
Interesting.
So you have to like ask, like,
so that's that repeat thing of misfortune following the visit if they're
like, what are you inviting
inside
them in? Like when they say, can we come in? We need an invitation. What do they perceive they are getting permission to do or an invitation to come into? Is it into your heart?
Apparently they're trying to, it's into your cells and they're jacking up your immunity.
Might be.
They're like, beep, boop,
well, I mean,
pop.
And there's a lot of theories.
Now you got the flu or appendicitis.
There's a lot of theories that these kids are like vampiric, like maybe energy vampires, where they feed on the fear and they feed on the misfortune. And so it's like, even if you don't let them in, they're going to still feed on the fear that you feel interacting with them. But if you do let them in, they're able to feed on like the aftermath of the misfortune. Anyway, so, and then there was another story.
Wait, so just quickly going back to that one that you just told, because I saw that same story recounted on TikTok of the two children coming into the house. That was the one, though, where it was a snowstorm, right? And there were no footprints.
That's what I was confused. You had commented footprints, but when I listened to the story, it said a set of two footprints.
No. Okay, so that is, I had two different stories. So that one said...
The one that you sent?
Yes, the one that you just told was one of the TikToks that I had shared to our sister chat. But in that one, they said that there were footsteps in the snow from those black-eyed children coming up to the house. And then in another account of black-eyed children coming to the house, there were like no footprints where there should have been footprints if somebody was there.
Ooh, that's creepy. There was another story I read where a woman saw black-eyed kids and one was standing on her doorstep, and she said that another one was in the yard, and basically she said it didn't walk to the door. She said it floated and their feet were hovering above the ground as it came to the door. But I couldn't find the story. Like,
so, that kind of started a theory in my mind, though. Like, is it like if it's an alien, right? If it's an alien type thing, are they like realizing as they go, like, oh, humans expect to see footprints if there's snow. We need to leave footprints. Like, are they learning as they see reactions?
I think they are. I think that's why more current interactions, they're often wearing sunglasses because
and leaving apple cores.
Because they've started to realize that humans don't like solid black eyes, and they're like, "Oh shoot! Well, we thought they'd like it."
Like, well, Darn
And
it.
they're also getting more modern because, two men having children, that's more modern.
Oh, you mean the story we just told?
Yeah.
Well, it just said two
Yeah.
black suited humans. They didn't
Yeah.
actually, they said two dark suited adults. It might have been two men.
I like my story.
Would have been a man and a woman.
Who knows?
Two gay men in black
Our parents have
having
arrived.
two kids.
So there's one more quick story. And this is one where this man didn't necessarily let the black-eyed kids in, but something strange happened. So I'm going to tell you. So this man hears a knock in the middle of the night. He goes, he looks out. He sees two kids. He gets that feeling of dread and he's like, "Go away, I'm not letting you in." And that's it. He goes to bed. A few days later, he finds out his neighbors are reported missing. They had not been seen for several days. The last day they had been seen was the day that he saw the black-eyed kids. And so he just wondered, did those kids go to the neighbors? Did the neighbor let them in? It just seemed really strange to him that the same night he had a strange encounter with the black-eyed kids,
But his neighbors went missing.
his neighbors, that was the last day they were seen. Never found again.
Interesting.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
Who
Wow.
knows?
That's really creepy.
Who knows? So we're going to talk about some theories, but we are going to save that for part 2. So the black-eyed kids are going to stay out on the porch tonight. We are not letting them in. So their hollow stares and robotic whispered questions are going to be put on hold. But the story is far from over. In our next episode, we'll return with more chilling encounters, and we're going to dive deeper into unraveling the theories of what these children might be. Are they spirits, aliens, demons, or something stranger still? So join us next week as we close out our discussion on the black-eyed kids. And if you've ever had an encounter of your own with a black-eyed kid or any story too eerie to keep to yourself, we'd love to hear it. Send us your tale at thespookydarlings@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at The Spooky Darlings Podcast, where we share updates, eerie extras, and photos that go with each episode. And if you'd like to help support the show and look super spooky while doing it, check out our merch at thespookydarlings.printful.me. Thank you for listening, and tune in next Tuesday for part 2 of The Black-Eyed Kids. Knock, knock. Who's there? Don't answer it. Thank you. Ooh, I almost forgot. Please take a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and write us a review. We would love to read it. 5 stars. Before we disappear into the shadows, don't forget, we're still sending out vinyl stickers. Leave us a rating and review and email us proof to thespookydarlings@gmail.com, along with your mailing address, and we'll send you some spooky snail mail while supplies last. And if your heart is still mourning that tote bag, may we gently tempt your way toward our merch store at thespookydarlings.printful.me. Treat yourself. You deserve it. Thanks for listening. And as always, stay spooky.